I was filming my short the other day on how to play Olivia Dean's Man I Need, and I was filming the pre-chorus bit where I was playing these big bar chords like this. And I realised that I actually don't play the chords that way when I play this tune in my band. So what I mean is that I don't actually play that many big, full, chunky bar chords like I played in that video. The main reason I filmed it with those chord shapes is because most people watching the video will recognise those chords more than they recognise the chords that I actually use when I'm playing this tune. So a lot of guitar players will play full bar chords in that same manner. So like this. But I don't. When I went to music school, I was taught to try and cut down my bar chords as much as I possibly could. So instead of voicing the chords on 5 or 6 strings, I was told to voice the chords on 4, 3, or sometimes even 2 strings. Now, this method is actually how a lot of the pros do it. A lot of professional guitar players won't play big full bar chords when they're in a band situation. Now, I'm not saying that I can't play those chords. There's loads of videos of me demonstrating how to play those chords and giving tips and techniques on how to do it. I was also taught those chords fairly early on in my guitar playing journey, so I've been playing them for a long time. It's just, for the most part, I choose not to play them. Now, there's 3 main reasons for this, and there's 3 main reasons for you to consider reforming your bar chords on guitar. So number 1 is that I prefer the sound of these chords as opposed to. So with the full bar chords like this, those are great if you're playing The Who or punk music or anything like that. But if you're trying to play in some kind of soul or pop or R&B band where there's loads of other instruments, that's a little bit too much information. There's too many strings ringing out in those chords. There's too many notes. So if you can cut them down to just to the chord triads or just to 4 strings, it sounds a lot better and you sit in the mix a lot better. You're not having to compete for space with all of the other instruments such as the bass, the keys, or even if you're playing with a brass section, you can find your own little pocket to sit in the mix. So the second reason is arguably it's a lot easier on my fretting hand to cut down the chords and use my thumb to fret the bass notes than it is to keep playing full bar chords. Again, not saying that I can't do those chords, not saying that I won't play any bar chords in the course of a night, but for a 2, sometimes 3-hour gig, it does build up. So if I can cut those chords down and just play a few on the high 3 strings or the high 4 strings, then I definitely will. And number 3, a big reason for me for why I choose not to play full bar chords is that I can get more fills. It frees up my fingers to play more fills on the guitar, and I can get to those fills quicker than if I'm playing full bars. So if I take this F sharp minor chord like this, all my fingers are practically being used. I mean, my second finger's redundant, but all of the other fingers are practically being used to fret the chord. If I can get rid of this pinky finger and play it like this, I've got my ring finger available to play those fills in between while my thumb and my first finger frets the rest of the chord. So again, you still want to learn your full bar chords. If you haven't done that yet, go check out my videos or any other video on how to fret bar chords and the technique. It's one of those things where even if you don't use the skill that much, you still want to have it down just in case you need it. You want the best of both worlds. So I'm now going to demonstrate the 4 main chord shapes on guitar. So that's E shape major, A shape major, E shape minor, and A shape minor. And I'm going to show you how I cut those chords down to just 3 or 4 strings. And I'm going to show you how I fret some of those chords with my thumb as well. So here's an E shape major chord on guitar. I'm going to do this. This is a G major chord, E shape, on the 3rd fret. You'll probably recognize this one. It's like an F major chord moved up 2 frets. So my favorite way to voice this chord is to get rid of this big bar here, bar just the high 2 strings like that. My second finger goes on G and my 3rd finger goes on D. And if you like, you can fret the bass note, the 3rd fret of the low E string with your thumb. So you get. It's a tighter, funkier shape than like. I can still play it roughly the same way with the same attack, but. Also, as I mentioned before, this frees up my pinky finger. do those fills on the sus4 and the 6th, and that sounds great in a pop or soul kind of setting. I also like to sometimes cut off the high E string here, so I'm just literally playing the root note, the 3rd and the 5th of the chord, like this. That sounds great if you're going to a C, like that. And oftentimes I'll even cut down this 3rd string and I'll replace it with the high E string. So this is the other triad that I use as well for this one. So now, don't worry if you haven't got the hang of wrapping your thumb over the fretboard to fret the bass note, because a lot of the time I don't even play the bass note. That's what the bass player is for. So a lot of the time I'll just be voicing this chord on the D, the G and the B, the D, the G, the B and the high E, or even just the G, the B and the high E string. So let's take a look at the minor form of that chord. So we're going to change that to a G minor. So this is that shape. So again, I'm going to get rid of this bar here. I'm going to replace that with my thumb. I'm going to do a smaller bar across the high E string, B string and G string. And I'm going to put my ring finger on the 5th fret of the D. So that's my preferred way to play this chord. You'll see me do that a lot. I caught myself doing that for the B flat minor when I was demonstrating the Olivia Dean tune the other day. I was playing it up there like that with my thumb, exactly the same way. Again, as I demonstrated earlier, I've got my 3rd finger free to do fills in this one. So like that. So yeah, that's really cool. There's so many things available to you there just by cutting down the bar and by getting rid of your pinky finger in that chord. Another way I like to do this chord is just to voice it on the high 3 string, so just one small bar across 3 on G, B and high E like this. So things like that work so much better in like a funk setting than tend to find that's too much going on. That's going to dominate the mix a little bit. So if I can cut that down and sit in a lot better with all the other instruments, then I will. In my band, we play Murder on the Dance Floor by Sophie Ellis-Bextor, and I use this voicing in the verse progression when it goes from G sharp minor down to F sharp minor. So just those high 3 strings, barred across fret 4. And it sounds much better than doing the full shapes. Let's take a look at the A shape chords that I do now. So if I do a C bar chord on the 3rd fret, looks like this. I have to double bar. I have to bar across the 3rd fret with my 1st finger, and I need to put my ring finger on the D, the G and the B. And most people, if they can't do that, they'll replace that with these 3 fingers. So the 2nd, the 3rd and the 4th like that. So I don't bother with the main 1st finger bar in this example, so I'll get rid of this and I'll either use my ring finger or my 1st to play the D, the G and the B. And again, I've got the fills available to me like that. Another way I like to voice this chord is on the high 3 strings. So the G on fret 5, the B on fret 5 with my pinky finger, and my 1st finger goes on fret 3 on the high E string like that. So now taking a look at the A shape minor form, the full chord voicing looks like that. So I've got 1st finger going across fret 3, I've got ring finger on 5 on D, I've got pinky finger on 5 on G, and I've got middle finger on 4 on B. Again, I'll get rid of the bar in this one, and I'll just be barring across the D, the G, the B, and the high E string like this. So this is my most common way to modify this chord to get rid of the full bar. So the chord is voiced on just the top 4 strings on the guitar. Another way you can voice this one is just by using the high 3 strings. So I'm going to go for the 3rd fret on the high string, the 4th fret on the B, I'm going to do the 5th fret on the G like this. So 3, 2, 1. Compare it to the full shape. Sometimes, again, you want the full shape, but sometimes you just want that. So now I'm going to compare the difference. I'm going to do the 2 major chords in kind of like a funky rhythm like I just did, I'm going to do the full shapes first, and I'm going to transition into my preferred voicings for these chords. Again, sometimes you do want the full shapes. It depends on the context and it depends on what you're doing. But sometimes you just want those small cut down shapes, which I use quite a lot. So again, here's my G chord. Go into my C. And now the cut down voicing. So cut down voicing, put the fills in, I'm now going to do exactly the same thing but with the minor chord form, so G minor to C minor, so here we go. Full voicings, C minor, cut down voicing, so thumb, play the bass, fill, there we go. So it means I can keep my hand wrapped around in the same position that I would use for open chords. Much more convenient than having to switch to like a pull bar like that. So both methods have their advantages, it just depends on what you need. So that just about wraps up this lesson on bar chords and smaller chord voicings on the guitar. You can do this with any bar chords you come across. You can cut down the amount of information that you're giving to the listener and the amount of strings that you're using to get tighter shapes that sit better in the mix. I hope you found this lesson useful. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, check out my website colchesterguitarteacher.com for more guitar lessons, and consider booking a one-to-one lesson with me. Until next time, my friends, take care, enjoy guitar playing, and thank you very much.